Welcome to Amplify. I'm your host, Candice Dormon. On this show, we shine a light on people making moves, grinding, hustling, and being excellent because it's 2020 and there's still a lot of firsts and onlys across almost every industry. So let's dig in. Hi, thank you so much for joining the show. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Candice.
So today is a very special episode for me. I am so glad to have on my husband, James. We have been married for 8 years and have 2 beautiful sons. He's coming to us all the way from our master bedroom. And then I'm also really super excited to have my father-in-law, James Sr., has joined us from Massachusetts. He's been married for 39 years, has 3 children, and has been an incredible father-in-law and grandpa. And I'm just so happy to be a part of this Dormon family. So thank you so much, Jameses. Is that what we're going to say tonight? We'll say Grandpa and James. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Or I think you had to have us, right? There was no choice. So
There's always choice. But I'm really glad that you guys are on. So why don't we just jump right in? This is a part of our Father's Day series. It is June of 2020. And I wanted to make sure that we captured some of this. I mean, it's really an awesome time to be focusing on dads this month when a ton of time is always spent, or most of the time is always spent talking about moms. And so to get to talk about dads and just get to learn a little bit about, especially in this case, my father-in-law and James's dad, I'm really super excited to dive right in. So why don't we start with you, Grandpa? Can you tell us a little bit about how you met Enna, who's grandma? We don't say grandma, we say Enna.
Okay. I call her Ifwa, and we met in college, actually, except that it wasn't the type of classmate type of thing. One time, a professor relation of mine asked me to maybe sort of house sit for him for a week while he went on a project somewhere. So I moved into the house, and this house happened to be next door to Ifwa, my wife-to-be. So one day I was in the house when there was a knock on the door, and there was this beautiful lady with her nephew coming to feed the goats in the backyard of my professor's residence. So we engaged in a little talk, and then the next day they brought the same food. I mean the food to the goats in the backyard. So this time I gathered courage and asked her to go out with me. And it took some time, and then she agreed that she would go out with me. So we arranged, and I had to go to her home, which was just next door. I was kind of well-dressed. I went to knock on the door, and her sister opened the door. But her sister's reception was kind of surprising. She was so nice. And because of certain experiences I had, I was apprehensive. I was not sure of what I was going to go into. But this lady was so receptive. She asked me, are you James Dormon? I said, yes. She said, come on in. And so I went in, and she offered me tea. And I was like, wow. Okay, then I heard her yell upstairs to Ifwa that James Dormon is here. So, she told us, oh, okay, I have to work tomorrow, but if you don't mind, I can drop you off at the disco where you want to go. Oh, I was sort of shocked because that was not the response I'd had from other girls and other families.
I love that. So it was off to a good start from the very beginning.
Very good start. So she told us, well, I can drop you off there, but you have to find your way back home, which was precisely what I wanted. You get my point. So she dropped us off at the Hedonist, which was a disco in the near the college. Yes. So that was the beginning. That was the
beginning. 39 years ago.
The reception was so amazing. So this is my answer. And then secondly, she wasn't then in the school yet, in the university. She had just finished the upper sixth, awaiting her admission to the university. So a few weeks later, she got admission. And then eventually we found ourselves in the same faculty, the Faculty of Architecture. So we both went through architecture and became architects.
I love it. And here we are 39 years later. That's amazing.
Exactly.
That's great. That's great.
I love that. And what about you, James? You want to tell them how we met?
Yeah, so we also met on campus. It's weird how all these stories are the same. So we met on the Tufts campus. The first time I saw Candice, you were walking with Peju and Kamaria. And mind you, Candice is pretty tall. She's about 5'9", 5'10", and Peju and Kamaria probably over 6 feet. So I saw you guys walking. I'm like, who are those guys? Fast forward, we got to know each other. We were dancing in Hotong, and we got to know each other there. And our first date was to the theater on Boston Commons, and we saw The Ring, and it did not go well at all. It went terrible. And so we left that date, and then kind of like didn't talk for a little bit because it didn't go that well. And then we ended up talking again on campus, and that led on to other things, and we've been dating ever since. And now we have, 2 beautiful boys and a home in New Haven.
Oh, I like that story. I like that. I'm gonna go with that story. I love how we all have our different versions of history, but I really like that one. So Thanks for sharing that. Now we're here for Father's Day. So Grandpa, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you knew you were ready to have kids and when you were ready and how you knew you were ready to have kids.
Okay. So Ifwa was my friend throughout college. There was a little distance between us. When I was in the fourth year, she was in the first year. But we were friends throughout, and her family lived on campus, just across from my hall of residence, near my professor's house. So we were kind of close, even during college. And then I finished school, did what we call the national service. And at that time, I became a manager of that disco we attended sometime in the past. Anyway, then I got a job as an architect. And of course, I became financially sort of comfortable. And so I moved to Nigeria to work as an architect in one of the states. Money was no problem, so things were good. And so when the time came, I knew that I was kind of ready to have a family, although she hadn't finished her postgraduate course yet. So, of course, again, I had relations who were looking at me and thinking I was spending too much time in school. And it was about time I became a man and had some settled and had some children. So with all that pressure, I decided that it was time to go and knock on their door, Auntie Eunice's door, and tell her that I was ready to enter into a contract with their sister.
I love it. I love it. And what about you, James? How did you know you wanted to have children and were ready to be a father?
So I would say we got married in 2012, or Candice and I got married in 2012. And once we got married, we bought a house, which went pretty quickly. Usually, I thought it was going to take quite some time to come up with the finances and pick a house. I thought it was going to take a long time, but we saw this house in New Haven, automatically loved the kitchen, and before we knew it, we're putting down, an offer to buy the house. And as soon as we bought the house and we lived in it for, I think, a couple of months, we knew that we were probably we liked the neighborhood. We were gonna stay there for a little bit, and so and I think we were also comfortable and knew that we could afford to have a child, and so that's how I knew I was ready. I don't think I would have been ready before then, or would have been a little bit of a struggle, but that's the path that worked for us, that we took. So I think it's different for everyone, but for us, it was pretty systematic.
I like that. It doesn't surprise me that the two of you have an idea of readiness that's associated with and tied to sort of like, job security and money in the bank and being able to sort of provide for your family in this way. It totally makes sense to me. I like it. I like it. So why don't we talk a little bit about why don't we say how would you describe yourself, Grandpa? How would you describe yourself as a dad? Like an adjective or two. What words come to mind when you think about yourself as a dad?
Okay. Yes. I think the word is lucky. I think I've been a lucky man, right from high school. I mean, primary school through high school, and I've known that I've not done everything by my own power. I've had help from all sources. The family is large, and they supported me. I also realized that when you got married, you didn't marry one person. You married a family, and therefore you had to look at every member of the family with respect and love. And so I cannot say that I did a whole lot of things alone. As a father, of course, I depended on Ifwa, my wife. She was formidable, or she is still formidable. A lot of the character today, my children's character, were formulated by both of us, and so I would consider myself that adjective I'd use is luck.
That's real. That's real. I like that. And what about you, James? How would you describe yourself as a father? What words come to mind?
So I think this is an interesting question, because I find that our parenting styles are very different, and we sometimes are yin and yang, which is sometimes not always conducive to being on the same page. But my parenting style is really patient. I think I'm fairly patient with the children, and want to figure things out and take time and things like that. And so that's how I would describe the way that I interact with them. And I think individually, with Lincoln, I like to push him a little more than with Emery, and I think we're bringing Emery along a little a little slow until he's ready to, take on the stuff that he wants to take on. But it evolves as it goes along. And when I see that they pick up things fairly quickly, then we move on to the next stage. But I think a good adjective would be definitely patient.
That's real. That's real. I would agree that you're very patient. So why don't we say, James, why don't you tell us a little bit about the thing you enjoy most about being a dad?
So, I mean, again, I would go back to talking about Lincoln and Emery, and I would say that I really, really enjoy when I think something is going to take a really long time, and I show Lincoln once, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe in month 3 he'll be able to ride the bike, and then in 30 minutes he's riding the bike, and I'm just like, what? Like, what happened here? Because in my mind, we're going to spend all summer long learning how to ride a bike because it's really important for him to do it, and then he does it in like 2 weeks, or I mean he does it in like 30 minutes, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we gotta like spend time doing something else. And so he just started picking up basketball. Anna and Grandpa just bought him some basketball shoes, so he's super excited. And then he goes over to our neighbor's house, Rick, and Candice has been, shooting some hoops with him. And I sometimes take him to the school to shoot some hoops. And he couldn't really reach the rim last week. We were playing basketball last week. They just took down all the rims, but they started putting it back. And Candice just went next door. You just went next door, and now he's hitting shots, and all he wants to do is play basketball now. And so, I mean, I'm thinking it's going to take a long time for him to learn how to dribble and get some handle. But again, proves me wrong all the time. And Emery, I remember we thought Emery was going to have a hard time walking. We actually had people come in to test them walk, and now you can't stop this kid from jumping off of everything. All he wants to do is just get on the highest thing he can and jump off of it. And he wants to show you how high he can jump. And so those are things that I really, really enjoy. And of course, I enjoy sharing them with my family, my dad, my mom, when they come over, just telling them about the new things that the kids are doing and the new progress that we've made. So it is one of the favorite things about being a dad is just seeing the progress that your kids make,
Yeah, that's real. They are. I'm really excited, but you're right. You think that you're going to have to put a ton of time into something, and then they get it, and you're like, okay, so now what do we do?
Yeah.
That was my whole plan.
Right,
That was my whole plan.
The whole summer, yeah.
The whole summer. Grandpa, what do you like most about being a dad? I'm really excited to have this juxtaposition of you and James on here because we have such a young family and you now have grandchildren. And so you can speak from the point of being a dad or a grandpa, throughout this conversation. But let us know what's the best part of being a father and a grandfather for you?
Okay. I have 3 children, and they all have different characteristics. BJ, James, was named after me, and I have a lot of respect for him. From my point of view, I know he's superior because when he was younger in Tufts University, he was the only one who beat me in Scrabble. And we understand it. A lot of times he would say certain things and he's coming from left field, but he means it. And in order, I mean, just to tell you that this is the guy who got me my job, the job I do now. was gotten for me by my son, James.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the amount of respect I have for him. Paula and David are in a different field altogether. They have their own sort of characters. I wouldn't sort of go into that. But what I enjoy, your question again, please. What was
It's
the
just,
question?
it's okay. I think that
Yeah.
I think that it's important to go with how you feel, right?
Yes.
But my question is generally about what's your favorite part of being a father and a grandfather?
Okay, so now with them growing up in our home and so on and so forth, and making sure that they came up respecting everybody, no matter what they looked like. The situation now is that I enjoy visiting them. I enjoy visiting my children, and of course, sitting in the backyard, having some barbecue and sipping on some wine and just relaxing. To me, that describes it all.
So you enjoy getting to see them now as adults.
Exactly. When you visit your daughter or your son or David or BJ, and the way they sort of take care of you and are concerned about your welfare, what else can one ask for?
That's true. That's so
Yes.
true. I imagine that the time goes by really quickly. And so
Yes.
I'm trying to remind myself to enjoy these days. I've heard so many people say that the days are long, but the years are short. And
Yes.
so I can only imagine that sometimes you look at them and you think they were just 5, they were just 10 years old just the other day. It must be incredible. Must be incredible.
Yes.
James, were there any surprises for you in fatherhood?
So I think the surprises for me were how much not how much effort it was going to take, but you owned everything. So once you have a child, their welfare and their well-being is up to you. But like my dad was saying, that you marry into a family, and you're not just marrying that other person. And so the surprising thing was how the emotional assessment that it took, and being able to make sure that everybody was okay, and having the energy to do all the things that you needed to do, whether it was, changing diapers or getting the kids to bed on time, or making sure that, they're fed and bathed and all of that stuff. That wasn't particularly hard, but it was a lot of the just being emotionally available and emotionally ready to handle, a lot of the things that were going on was something that I I don't I wasn't really prepared for, and I don't know if a lot of new dads are prepared for, in that, hey, these are skills that you might not have built up already, and that you might have to work on, and you can't really do it incorrectly, or you just have to do it the best way that you know how. And so that was probably the most difficult part.
I can appreciate that. There is no playbook, but some of us have a innate want to do something right the first time, and it's a challenge when you realize that there's really no right way to do it, and but you can still be really super successful at it. So I appreciate that. Grandpa, what is the scariest part of being a father?
Well, I have, excuse me, I have not really,
That's 3 generations on camera.
yes, that's Lincoln. I have not really been scared along the way, because again of the support the support I've had from other relations. You were also, I mean, you were always taught to be confident because of what you had behind you. And so, well, when you come to America, the situation is maybe having children who are sort of truant and will not abide by simple commands or laws and so on and so forth. But luckily, I believe that because of traits from me and Ifwa, children have kind of, they've acquired that temperament to be patient, with people they come in contact with. So if you ask me about any sort of, being scared of having children, I think the kids were, they lived up to standard and themselves. I wouldn't say that I had any qualms about their upbringing. I think they lived up to expectations, and that is where the luck comes in too. Yeah, the luck. They all turned out to be very responsible people eventually. And I think also my Ifwa always advised me to get to know them and to make them my friends. So today I can sit in David's apartment and laugh and do whatever I want because he's my friend.
I like that. That's so interesting, because I've grown up always hearing that, you know, your kids are not your friends, right? You're like there to show them the right way. And like, I've heard people, parents, I don't know if it's my mom who says this, but I've heard someone say, listen, I'm not your friend, right? Like, I'm not your friend. I am here to make sure that you don't X, Y, and Z. But there is something to be said about building a friendship with your children so that as they get older, you have that to rely on when you can no longer just tell them what to do.
Okay, let me give you just one quick instance.
Sure.
When David was in Tufts, I'd visit him maybe once every 2 weeks, 2 weekends. And there was this Dunkin' Donut down the street from where he lived, down the hill. So Sunday afternoon, I'd arrive and then we'll go down to the Dunkin' Donuts, sit down and drink some coffee. So this happened for a while. And it happened that the girl at the counter, was there every time we met there. Now, David looks a little different from me. We have the same shape of head and everything, but he's very fair, like his mother. So the girl couldn't understand why this old man and this young man would come. So one day, she gathered courage and came to us. She came to us and said, excuse me, are you two friends? And then David looked in my face and said, Dad, we are friends, right?
Oh, that is so sweet. So, I love that.
Just to tell you, this was just a side issue anyway.
That's amazing.
I thought she was thinking of other things, but David gave her an answer, yes. And then, of course, she brought us some extra drinks that we didn't really have room for. Yeah, she was happy that we were father and son. Yes,
I love it. So for you, James, yes, James, because we're saying James and Grandpa.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about any family traditions that you remember as a child that you are extending into our family with your own sons?
So we pretty much celebrate the same family traditions that are, I guess, generally everybody celebrates. So, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all that stuff. Some of the more different traditions that for our traditions really come in when there's like a big event or something like that. So for like, let's say when we're getting married, we have an event where, we'll go over to the other family's house, knock on the door and ask for the wife's hand in marriage. And they kind of do the same. We also have traditions where we name our kids on a certain day of the week. So I'm born on Friday, so I'm Kofi. Um, I named my Lincoln is the oldest one, so he's also named Kofi, and Emery is named Echo after Echo Body. So we have traditions there. So some of the new traditions that we or I am bringing in right now is I really enjoy my family. I think we're great, and I am really happy that Grandpa is my dad, and it brings me joy every single time I see him. And so the new tradition that we've started is that anytime I see them or anybody in my family member, I get them on camera and I say, "Hey, today is June 8th, or whatever day it is, and it's a great day for the Dormans." And so that is tradition that I plan on continuing, and I want my kids to do and stuff like that. And what happens is that once you hear it back on video or you hear it in an audio, after 6 months from now, you really feel good about it because the world is oftentimes all over the place. But if you realize, 2 days ago, 3 months ago, 3 years ago, it was a great day for the Dormans, then you know that another day could always be a great day for the Dormans. So those are traditions that we usually, some of the traditions that we had and some of the traditions that we are creating going forward.
I love it. We were all hesitant to jump on board with your recording and your Great Day for the Dormans, but I do have to say that as I see them now over the course of the year, it does bring up some really great feelings from that time, and it's nice to have those things to call back on. The other thing that I, as a new part of the Dorman family, I'm really glad that we continue with our growing family is that you guys, your family is from Ghana, and I've heard lots of stories of you guys getting to go back to Ghana, like your mom taking you to Ghana and spending time in Ghana on the summer or with cousins or what have you. And I never got to go back anywhere, right? My family is from Belize, and I don't remember ever getting to, not I don't remember, I still haven't been to Belize. And so the fact that your family made that it was important for you and your brother and sister to have time in Ghana and spend time there so that you could get to, really know your culture, I see as a really important thing and a really incredible privilege and luxury that you guys had. And I'm really glad that we also have made that an important part of our rearing our sons and having to get, like, I got to go to Ghana and learn about it. And then that now our children have gotten to go back. So hopefully when outside opens up again, we can make time and get back there.
Yeah.
But I think that really being at home, wherever that home place is really important to solidifying for our kids and for individuals the importance of family and tradition and where you come from. So kudos to you, Grandpa, for making that happen, and kudos to you, James, for also making that happen for us. Let's talk a little bit more about about your upbringing. Grandpa, can you tell us a little bit about the thing you remember most about your dad and the thing that you perhaps try to emulate from him in your own parenting?
Yes. Okay. In my case, my mom died earlier in my childhood. I was around 7 or 8 years old. And under certain circumstances, of course, my mother lived apart from my father. And that was a tradition in the town my mother came from. They lived in their own family's house. So when my
They were
mom died,
married, but they lived in their own family's house?
yes, that is the tradition.
Wow.
Yes. So when my mom died, everybody sort of felt sorry for me. I was the only child of my dad and my mom. So one day I was in the house, my mom's house, when my friends came in. They came into the house. Um, uh, uh, of course, they mentioned my local name and said, "Your dad is here. Your dad is here. Your dad is looking for you." So after the funeral and everything, my dad came and told my aunties and my relations that, "Hey, this boy is my son. I'm taking him away." That was unheard of. Like I was being snatched out of. And after the elders thought about it, they agreed. That's the man's son. He wants to take his son away. And so that was the beginning of my life.
Mm.
My dad, and one other thing I noticed about him was his sense of responsibility and his ability to analyze a problem and bring it down to common denominators.
Sorry, Grandpa, can you start? Grandpa, wait, start
Yes.
one more time. We didn't hear it. You said one other thing that you know about him. I think you were saying is he's brilliant. Can you start again?
Yes. So one thing I noticed about him was his ability to sort of analyze situations. So he can think very. I mean, he could think very quick on his feet, and he could analyze situations down to the common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
So I in my life I have realized a little transfer of that trait to through me and to the kids and to my children. I of course I'm not saying that their maternal grandfather, who was also a big guy, he could play the piano like with his. He was so good. So I'm not saying the genes only came from the Dormons, of course, but I saw my dad as a thinker, somebody who not academic thinking, but when it came to practicality, he was your man. He could get the job, the problem solved. So that is what I remember about him. And a lot of things I do today and know today. Look, I thought when I was growing up as a young man, I thought, I thought my dad was ugly, and then as I grew up, I started seeing the man in my face. So I realized that, okay. He might not be too bad.
That's so good.
So that is what I remember about my father. He was brilliant. Yes, he was.
That's really great, because that's how I think of you, right? I think you're super brilliant. I think that you have a way of explaining things to me. That's one of the earliest memories. James and I have been together for 18 years. And one of my earliest memories is of getting to meet you and just being mesmerized by the stories that you would tell, right? And to me, nobody, right? Like just some girl, and that you took time to spend time with me and explain things to me and treat me like a part of your family, like super early on. I understand now where that comes from this sort of patriarchal, this fatherly way of making sure that people know that you've embraced them. And so that, I mean, it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense.
Yes.
James, what are some things that you remember early about your dad and that you try to emulate for your sons?
Yeah, so I think one, and Candice, you're familiar with this. One of the things that we do is we get together for a lot of family holidays. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, July 4th, and all that stuff. And so my dad does this thing where he will call family members and just be like, hold on, BJ's here. He wants to talk to you, and hand you the phone. And you're like, Dad, what are you doing? And then you have to talk to them and you're like, hey, how's it going? It's good, and blah blah blah. And I didn't really understand the point of that until I got older and I started doing it myself. I started doing it myself.
Harassing people.
Right, right. And so it was just like, oh, I get it now. That's what he was doing. He's like, this is your cousin. Don't forget about him. This is your
Mm,
uncle. Just say hi to him to keep in touch. Not, you don't have to talk to him every single day, but at least once a year, pick up the phone and say hi. This is your aunt. Say hi to your aunt. You haven't talked to her in a long time. And so it took me a while to understand that. And so now I'm just like, I like to reach out to family. You know, when family comes over, I want to be a gracious host because I'm just like, hey, I haven't known you for a good portion of my life. Let's get to know each other, you know? And this is how, you know, we got to know Jason Dorman and Julia Dorman, all the other Dormans in our family
mhm,
who have come to visit our house and who we know dearly. And when we go to Ghana, we go see their house and they welcome us, you know, in the same exact way. And I see it in Lincoln and Emery anytime we are if I'm giving you a hug, Emery immediately gets out of the bed and comes and is like, family hug. We have to do a family hug. And God
mm,
forbid we leave one of the kids out of the family hug,
mhm.
then we know that it's a huge problem, you know? And so I realize it's kind of like the same thing where we're teaching them the importance of family and that, you know, it doesn't matter how long you've known this person or how little you've known this person, but they're still your family members and they still deserve you to reach out to them once in a while, you know? And so that's what one of those things that I think I emulate from my dad is that I have become a really huge family person. It's really, really important to me that everyone's okay and that everybody has a place to come to on the holidays to just, you know, hang out, share a story, share a drink, and just know that they can really count on us for at least a good conversation, you know?
That's incredible. I mean, the same thing I said to your dad I feel like I haven't ever heard this story about your grandfather. And so to see that I mean, I think about the Dormans as a clan, right? It's the Dorman clan and it is wide and it is deep. And the fact that you both out of your grandfather, right, are very clear on who is a part of the clan, who we're going to bring into the clan, and how we're going to make sure that they feel warm and welcome and loved as a member. You know, everybody is a member of this clan, so that's really incredible. I love it. As we close, why don't you tell us, Grandpa, what is some advice that you would give to a new father, someone who's maybe just found out they're having a baby, or you know, very early on in the stages of fatherhood?
Yes. Well, having a baby or having a child is another phase in your development. Up until that time, you must have lived a bachelor life, and then you met your wife, and now a baby is in the mix. And therefore, one of the quick things to understand is that your ability, if you are able to take care of that baby properly, again, to make as he grows up, to make him your friend. He will sort of be connected to you for forever. Apart from that, you are starting a new, apart from your job, as the job you go to or the business you run, your daughter, your new daughter or son is your other investment. So it is harsh to refer to the kid as an investment. But again, if you do a good job of management and you take care of the kid and he knows that his back is covered, it goes a long way to preventing either the kid ends up in jail or he ends up in Harvard or Tufts. So the main point is that as a new father, you have to come up with you have to reinvent your thinking and reasoning and understand that the big guy has landed, either the daughter or the son has landed.
I like that. I like that. No, I really like that. It's sound advice. Our children are an investment, not definitely monetarily. All the money goes to them, but in life in general, you have to put into them so that they have the best chance. And not just monetarily, but all of the things that you pour into your children. And this image of your child knowing that you have their back I think is what we're all striving for.
Yes.
Yeah. So I like that. What about you, James? What advice would you give to a new dad?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is I have a friend, Joseph, who was on the show earlier, who just had a baby. So we've been having this conversation back and forth. But this advice has been changing as I get a little older. But what I would say is that there is a percentage or misconception that everything should be 50-50 in a relationship. And so a lot of people take that literally to say, oh, I changed 5 diapers this week. That means you need to change the other 5 diapers. And my advice to new dads is that it's not a fixed scale. It's more of like an amoeba, right? Sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 40 60. It just changes all the time, but just know that eventually it balances out. And even if it doesn't and you're doing the heavy lifting, it is going to be very rewarding in the end. And so attack it as whichever way you want, you know how to do. And if you don't know something, it's super easy to learn, right? So if there's something that you're not good at or you can't do, look it up on YouTube and try to figure out the best way that it works out for you to do. But know that in the times where you're taking on things 90% and you feel like the other person's only doing 10%, that eventually it's going to balance out, and there's going to be a time where it swings the other way. And if you've handled that 90-10 in the best way that you can, when it swings the other way, you're going to be, it's going to be really easy to handle and you can handle that. And so when you look at it that way, you can determine and know when things are going to be shifting in that way, and you're prepared for it, and it doesn't knock you off your stride or catch you by surprise. So I would take that 50-50, throw it out the window, and know that you have everything 100%. You're never going to do it 100%, but if you have that mentality that everything goes through you, good or bad, then you're going to handle this with ease and enjoy every second of it.
I like that. And to be fair, 100%. I know that there's some days that I only got 1% in me, and I think that the main takeaway from this is to have a great partner that you know that on days where you can't carry it all, then they can carry for you, and that on days where they can't, then you can also carry. So that's really good. I'm so glad that's how you think, James. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, so yes, so during Mother's Day it would be the difference, the different percentages, but that's what I would give a person who's my friend who just became a new dad. You have everything 100%, and you'll be golden. Yep.
I love it. Well, James and James, Grandpa and James, I'm so glad we had this chance to sit and talk about life, about fatherhood, about your relationship. It just warms my heart to see you guys in this way, and to have this that I can show our boys. I'm overwhelmed with joy. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and talk to me about your family history. Absolutely, go ahead.
Can I make one comment? Well,
of course.
One of the other things is regarding fatherhood is the sort of stress on education.
Okay.
So in real estate, they have a slang that goes like location, location, location.
Mm-hmm.
With people like us, Black people, the slang should read education, education, education.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have the capacity and the temerity to go to the moon.
Distance.
Distance. Yes. But it all starts with education.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just pray that we start looking at things and getting our children into the schools.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all I have to say.
That is a perfect note to end on. To do what you can to make sure you give your children the best opportunities that you can, and that you find them the supports that they might need so that they have the best chance to be successful. I think something you said earlier, Grandpa, is that the more we pour into our kids and make sure that they are strong and able to take care of themselves, the more that as we get older, we can relax because we know that they're self-sufficient. So
exactly.
That's the whole goal, is to get them. Yes. In my other conversation, Joseph said, we're just trying to keep them alive. And I'm glad to add on that we are also trying to make them self-sufficient. So
right.
So thank you so much.
I was gonna say, so Dad, from me, David, and Choch, we love you. We wouldn't want anybody else to be our dad. Happy Father's Day. And we're just very excited every single time that we see you. So we hope to continue this more and more and more and more and more. And we want to enjoy as many Father's Day as we can with you. And I know that Lincoln and Emery are just happy every single time they see you.
Thank you, boss. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. On that note, we'll see you next time. Come back anytime. I'd love to have you on the show. Anytime, you are welcome. We can't wait to see you again, Grandpa.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, Candice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.